Guys, we are back. This episode of the Clip Service podcast on what is going to be the second part of our off-season archive. Roland and I are going to, now that we've had a little bit of time to decompress, take some time to reflect, we're going to come at you guys with a little bit more of a clear mind, maybe a little bit more optimistic. I don't know. I can't speak for Rolla,
Absolutely
but
not.
okay, so I'm gonna try and approach this a little bit more optimistically, but yeah, there's a couple big pieces of news coming out of the Clippers sphere. Today, Ty Lue signed an extension, so we're gonna dive into that and a couple of other things coming up. So without further ado, let's make it happen.
What's up, Clipper Nation? And welcome to the Clip Service Podcast, Off-Season Edition.
Yes.
Make sure to find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Deezer, Amazon Music, YouTube, and you can also find us on Twitter and Instagram at Clip Service Pod. I'm Rolla, and this is my co-host, Nick. Let's get right into it.
Let's get right to it indeed. It feels good if, now that we've gotten past, now that we've come to grips with the fact that this Clippers season was a horrible failure and it's over and we just have to watch Luka Doncic tear up the playoffs. The man that we could have stopped, but we didn't. But now that that's all over and we've had time to reflect, time to compartmentalize. This is about the time when Clipper fans really start to get in their bag as far as trade machines and theoretical player combinations that we could trade for and stuff like that. So that's in full force, and I think that I'm kind of at peace in a shitty way. So yeah, Rolla, how are you feeling now that the season we're far removed from the Clippers season as a whole?
I'm still feeling like shit, but
I mean, yes, but it feels a little bit better, doesn't it? Now that we've had some time. No.
I've accepted the fact that we're nowhere near a championship level team.
I'm kind of there too.
That's kind of been the realization this summer. Last summer, we were thinking, one more season, we like go all out. Maybe we can do it next season. This season, it's like we did that and we still lost in the first round. So it's time for a new plan.
Yeah.
But the future's bright. Hopefully in 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah, the future is depending on how far that is. It will be bright at some point. I think that I'm of the belief, whether for good or bad, that the Clippers are probably not going to go into a full rebuild. I said that last episode. I still kind of feel that way, just based on what we know about Steve Ballmer and the stadium opening up and just what the general direction of this franchise has been for the last couple of years. I just can't really see them. I mean, look at what happened, after we traded Blake and after Lob City came to a screeching halt, right? There wasn't really a rebuild. There was a retooling. We could have completely rebuilt, started from scratch. And we didn't do that. We wanted to stay competitive. So I think Steve Ballmer, is definitely of the belief that, this is a team that he wants to compete. But I mean, the severity of, running it back could be really bad. So I think that he's probably cognizant of that too. I think that there's probably some sort of middle ground. But yeah, let's just, now that we don't have playoff basketball to watch for ourselves, because we'll get into the Clipper stuff here in a second, but obviously the playoffs are upon us. The finals is upon us. The finals are upon us, and break down a little bit what you've thought of the playoffs thus far. The post Clipper exit from the playoffs.
I think that these have been some this has been a fantastic playoffs overall as a basketball fan.
Yeah.
Um, the only thing that sucks are the injuries that multiple teams have gone through. I think we say this every year. Like, there's been a lot of injuries, but especially
I feel like it
on
hasn't been
the
as hasn't been too bad, right? I mean, aside from
I feel like on the
Halliburton.
I feel like on the East it's been pretty bad. On the West, not really. I
You're
mean, like
right.
you look at
Embiid and
Heat, Embiid, Jimmy
Giannis.
Butler, all of the Knicks, Giannis.
Yeah, the Knicks were running a
Um,
skeleton crew there at the
yeah,
end.
they had like four players
Yeah.
at the end of their game. Donovan Mitchell got injured. Um, so I mean, on the East, it's kind of been slim pickings, but I think the
And that's
West has
why the
been
Celtics they are being criticized a little bit right now because
well.
a lot of people are saying that they haven't been tested,
Yep,
this and that,
I
which is
agree.
a fair point. Sorry, what were you going to say? And then we
I
maybe
was gonna
touch
say
on
the
that.
West has been unreal. The matchups have been amazing. The Mavs, I think the Mavs are gonna win the chip, just because I think they have a superstar. I think they have a superstar. They have a veteran who has won a chip before, and they have a cast of role players that play hard and make big shots. At the end of the day, I think that's what makes up a championship team, and I just don't think the Celtics have that. Um, so I guess we'll see. But
Do
as of
you
right now,
think?
the Mavs have to finish the job.
Yeah, the series is now 3-1. For those of you who don't know, 3-1. Obviously the Mavs have the lead against the Timberwolves, but Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns found a way to make the series interesting. Karl Anthony Towns, the Timberwolves were struggling, and this has been a kind of their biggest downfall this series has been staying out of foul trouble, particularly Karl Anthony Towns. And Anthony Edwards is obviously their leader. He's their best player, but and Anthony Edwards touched on this, but he said that Karl Anthony Towns is our best offensive weapon for sure.
Yeah.
Like just because of the mismatches that he can create, right, with his size and shooting. In my opinion, he's the best 3-point shooting big man the league's ever seen. I don't think that's
Mm-hmm.
too much of a stretch, but I think that him getting in foul trouble in this last game really put them behind the 8 ball, but he was able to come out in the fourth quarter, hit a couple of really big shots, and it just it shows how important he is to that formula. So if Cat and Rudy and Ant can all stay out of foul trouble, I think that they can make this a series. I'm not going to go out and say that they're going to do what no team has ever done and come back from 3-0. But I think that they can definitely give the Mavs some trouble. I personally would hate to see the Mavericks lose it, or would hate to see the Mavericks win a championship. So as long as this series can go, and as much as this can series can wear down the Mavs, the better, in my opinion. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think I forget who said it, which talking head or which personality said this the other day, but someone said that whoever comes out of this series is probably going to be the face of the league moving forward, whether it be
Mm.
Luca or whether it be Anthony Edwards. I think that
I don't think so. I disagree
yeah,
on that
I think
point.
it was an interesting point. I think that with how cherished Luca and Jokic have been over the course of the last couple of years, and for good reason. They're generational players.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the league's kind of already made up its mind that that it kind of wants Luca to be the face of the league and Jokic to be the face of the league because they're European players. They play a specific type of way, and it's really
Right.
fundamentally sound and fun to watch when they're not specifically Luca when they're not flopping. But yeah, so I think it was an interesting point, but I do think that Anthony Edwards is kind of cognizant of that too. I think that he loves talking to the media. He loves hamming it up with the media. And I think that he knows, what getting past the Mavs or at least making this a series and looking competitive would do for his image. I mean, this series has been super interesting. All the games have been pretty close, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, let's go over to the East real quick because we touched a little bit on the Celtics.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think the biggest knock that a lot of people have had in the Celtics in their playoff run is that they haven't really played a healthy team, or they've been given kind of this lucky given the lucky hand, as it were. The first round they played against the who was it? The Heat.
Yeah, they played the Heat first round.
Okay, and then Jimmy Butler was obviously he got hurt like in the
Hmm.
first game or first couple games or whatever.
Yeah.
Then they went on to play the Cavs, and the Cavs were struggling with injuries. They didn't have Jared Allen, and then Donovan Mitchell, went down, and there was that whole situation. Went on to play the Pacers. The Pacers are one of my favorite teams in the league, aside from the Clippers, obviously. And Halliburton, I'm a big time Tyrese Halliburton fan, and I really
Hmm.
thought that they were going to make it a series, but Tyrese Halliburton goes down, and they were competitive games, and actually the Pacers had a chance in a few of those games to win,
Yeah.
and some unfortunate turnovers cost them big time. But they obviously swept the Pacers, and now here they are waiting to face whoever comes out of this series in the West. And so a lot of people are saying that they haven't really been tested, but my counter to that is, Jason Tatum's 26, I believe. I think he's
Hmm.
been to the finals like 3 or 4 times. He's been to the playoffs, you know, more times than that. He's been to the conference finals a bunch of times. Same thing with Jaylen Brown. And with the talent that they added in Drew Holiday, who's, you mentioned that Kyrie has championship experience. So does Drew
Right.
Holiday. He's been playing, unreal basketball lately.
Hmm.
Um, and then Porzingis, who's set to come back from an injury. They have the depth, and they have, Derek White is kind of an afterthought in their offense, and he's a very good player. Al Horford's still proving that he can put up numbers. All these guys individually, I think, are tested enough throughout their careers that I think that, I mean, I'm picking the Celtics to win it all for that reason. I don't think that they necessarily needed a test this playoff run to be able to convince themselves that they know how to get it done. What do you think?
Well, I think that, and LeBron talked about this on his podcast, but he was saying something along the lines of when it comes down to these last couple games, like conference finals, it kind of comes down to your superstars because all of the role players on both teams kind of cancel out at the end of the day. And it's based mainly on IQ. That's why they say, um, like, kind of to your point, like experiences kind of wins games for a lot of teams. Like you look at OKC and who they play the Mavs, like OKC and the Mavs. OKC had never been there before. I personally thought that OKC was a better team than the Mavs. I mean, obviously the regular season showed that. But when it came down to crunch time, the Mavs knew what to do. They had Luca leading them, who is a superstar in this league, I believe.
Yeah. Oh, I don't
Um,
think anybody would disagree with that.
I think that Kyrie has, won a championship. He's a big voice on that team. I think Kyrie has. I think the Kyrie we see today is a completely different Kyrie than we've ever seen. He seems more focused. He seems like he wants to do the right things to win the game rather than focus on himself, score, and because I mean we all know he can score whenever he wants, and it's kind of like I think it was the last series where he averaged like probably like around 12, like maybe like 15 points for the
He
whole
shed on
series.
us. I know that.
Yeah, I
He
mean,
carried
yeah.
them
The
in,
thing
in
is
their
like
series.
if Kyrie wants to go off, he can go off. There's no one who can really guard him. So it's just one of those things where I think that if they need him in the finals, I think he steps up, and I don't think that someone like Drew Holiday can guard him because at the end of the day, better offense is always going to beat the best defense. Um, but hey, I think it'll be a good series. I think it'll go
Is
7 games. But I
Mavericks
think at the end
and
of the day, the Mavericks have a clutch factor that I had like people have been saying, like the Celtics haven't really been tested. They had one close game against the Pacers where Jaylen Brown hit that 3-pointer, but other than that, I mean the Mavs have been winning these close fourth quarter games since the Clippers, since us. So it's
they've been
kind of
getting a
just
lot
like,
out of their role players too.
yeah,
I was a big PJ Washington skeptic,
mhm.
and he's been big. I still don't like him, but I got to give credit where it's due, and he's been huge for them. Gafford's been big. Lively's been really
Yeah,
key for them. He is hurt. I think he got kneed in the head last game, but
yeah,
they've been getting good contributions from their role players too, and they play physical. They play a lot more physical than I think a lot of people thought.
yeah,
And like you said, they've been winning big games, and they have been a little bit more tested than the Celtics. And granted, their series isn't over, but barring a miraculous comeback from the Timberwolves, then that will be the matchup: the Celtics and the Mavs. Um, but I just think that, like, kind of like I said, I think that with the individual experience that everybody on this Celtics team has, plus I do think that the top talent from the Celtics have a little bit more to prove than the Mavericks. You look at the Mavericks' two best players, Kyrie and Luka. Kyrie's won a championship. Kyrie really doesn't have anything to prove. Obviously, he wants to win, and he's, like you said, he's playing with a level of focus
but
that
what about
we
the
kind of
motivation that it's against the Celtics?
no. That's a huge motivation.
I
That's a
feel like
huge
that's something to
motivation.
prove.
It is. It is. But I think at the end of the day, I think that pales in comparison to the motivation that Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum have, in the sense that they've been running this duo out for the last 6 years, whatever it's been, 7 years, um, and there's always been a dialogue on these guys that is this the right combination? It's similar to the Kawhi and
I
PG
was gonna say, dude, how
talk.
come it's never worked for the Clippers? And
Yeah, well, I mean,
they've never had that motivation.
I think it's just the youth, and I think that Jason Tatum is a more aggressive scorer than Paul George. At the end of the day, they're
I
very
doubt it,
similar.
dude. Because look at what he's been doing recently. He hasn't really been like playing hard. When's the last time he scored more than 30 points in a game?
Well, I don't think he's had to. And I think the way that Tatum approaches his offensive game, it just, to me, it's a little bit more deliberate than anything we've seen from PG lately. And I think a big part of that is youth. But basically, what I'm trying to say is, there's been a lot of, like, the dialogue on these guys. Can it work? Jason Tatum's never been able to get it done,
Hmm.
regardless of the fact that he's only 26 and he's been to the playoffs more times than a lot of veteran stars in this league. Like, that's pretty impressive. I personally don't think he's necessarily a number one option, but I think that, to that same point, I think that Jason Tatum can really prove to, like, he has a chance to prove to everybody, like, okay, I am a number one option. I can win a championship as the number one option. And this is his best shot. And same thing with Jaylen Brown. I think Jaylen Brown has kind of always been the afterthought in regards to both of them. And Jaylen
Right.
Brown just won conference finals uh, MVP.
Yeah.
And I think that he's got a lot to prove. Everybody says he can't dribble with his left, he can't go left, this and that. So there's, like, a lot of slander that comes from those two, or comes, being directed at those two. And I think
Right.
that the motivation that they have is a little bit, edges out the Mavericks a little bit. And that's not to say that the Mavericks don't want to win. I know that they want to win. Um, but I mean, with Luca's, gets a ton of praise, and he's going to continue to get a ton of praise as long as he keeps playing at the level that he's playing at. Um, I think that
But isn't Luca younger than Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown?
uh, I would have to check on that. Like, maybe
I
by a
think he's
year or
like
two.
I think he's 25. I mean, look how he's been to the conference. This is the second time in the conference finals.
Yeah, but he's never been to
Um,
the finals, and
he's been in
I
the
don't,
playoffs probably the same amount of times Jason Tatum has, right?
I don't think so.
I think he's gone every single time, every single year of his
You
career.
might
Because
be right.
I
I
mean,
just
we're
keep
looking
forgetting
at
that we've knocked them out twice, so
yeah,
they
we
haven't
knocked them
gotten
out.
very
They had to
far.
run into Kawhi, and then but I would say Jason. I would say Luca has the same motivation Jason Tatum has. I would say Kyrie has even more motivation than anyone on the Celtics. Just
Yeah,
off of how the Celtics fans treat him,
yeah,
off of the way he was treated. What was it last year or 2 years ago in the Brooklyn era? The way the NBA treated him, for him to win a championship this year and say "fuck all of you guys" for the way you fucking treated me.
yeah. No,
I think
it's
that's
a
a
good
huge
point.
motivation.
That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, I think there's motivation from both sides. Also, aside from that, I do think that the Celtics have a bit, especially with Porzingis back. I do think that the Celtics definitely have an edge in terms of
True.
depth. I think that the Mavericks have been getting the just absolute magic from their role players. Derek Jones has been playing out of his mind, PJ Washington, but I just think in terms of pure talent, I think the Celtics, Derek White, Drew Holiday, Porzingis, Al Horford,
Mm.
even Peyton Pritchard, guys like that, Xavier Tillman. If it takes some time for Kristaps Porzingis to kind of come back, they do have depth at the center position to be able to kind of hold it down. Um, they do have the depth in my eyes to edge out the Mavericks a little bit.
Yeah.
You,
Guess we'll
you
see.
looked like you were going to say something. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
No,
off.
no, no, no. I mean, I guess we'll see. I don't really have anything else to say.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I would love to see the Celtics win for a multitude of reasons.
Should we
I'm
give
not
our
going to get into
predictions?
why, but sure. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that it is the Mavericks and the Celtics facing off in the finals.
Wait, give winner, give in how many games, and give score of the last game.
Ooh, okay. Um, okay, so let's just say let's get the logistics correct here. So let's say that the Celtics have Porzingis back. Let's say that
Okay.
the Mavericks get Derek Lively back.
Okay.
Um, I think that because the Celtics have home court advantage, I think they'll probably win the first two. So I think that the series is probably over in 6 at the most. And I think that you said how many games and what was it?
How many games? Oh, who? Okay, winner. How many games? And score of the final game.
Score the final game. Oh, that seems like so far ahead in the future. Um, but yeah, I'm gonna say Celtics in 6. I think that they're gonna put them away big time in game 6. And I think that the score will be 107 to 91.
Wow. I
Yeah.
feel like you're hating tough on the Mavs, bro.
Of course I am. But I really just think
You
that
think that the Celtics are like head and shoulders better than the Mavs?
I think that they are, and I'm still riding with the belief that I think that the Celtics are due.
Wow.
I think the Celtics are due because they've been in the same position year after year after year. And like the
What do
Mavericks,
you mean?
they've
They've only
made
been to the finals once.
no, they went to the finals like twice, didn't they?
When was the last time? They went to the one
Um,
against Steph Curry.
okay, and then didn't they go?
Giannis
Didn't
won. Giannis went that one year against the Suns. Who went last year? Um, uh, who was in the finals last year? Oh,
like which
Miami.
two teams?
Yeah, Miami. The 2020 against the Lakers was Miami again.
Wait, who did the Nuggets play last year? I'm
Miami. Remember, Miami beat the Celtics in like 6 games, I think.
okay. You're right. Yeah, okay, but I mean,
Celtics are
they've gotten
trash, bro.
no, they're not trash. They're not trash. I think that they've gotten either to the conference finals or the finals several years in a row, and I think that they're due. I don't know. I just think that eventually, like, they're gonna have to get over the hump, and they've had a ton of rest. Also, the Mavericks series isn't over yet, and like the Timberwolves are gonna play hard regardless of
When did
when the series is over.
when did the finals start?
I have no idea.
For some reason, I thought it was June 1st.
It could be. I don't. Well, actually, no,
They usually
because
get like a week, right?
yeah, or like 5 days or something like that. Either
Maybe it's like
way,
June 6th or something, or June
the
8th.
Celtics have a big time rest advantage. The Timberwolves are not going to
Just
go
a couple
quiet.
days.
The
When did
Timberwolves
the
are not going to
Celtics
go
win?
quiet. Anything can happen. There's a chance that someone gets knocked or someone uh, takes some bumps and is hobbled a little bit going into the finals matchup. So I don't know. I just think that the rest advantage and the fact that the,
Three
the, the
days
Celtics
though.
are so close. Yeah.
I think.
Well,
I mean, I don't think there's a really an advantage between 5 and 8 days.
okay, let's say that the Timberwolves win tomorrow.
Then the Mavs are screwed. The Mavs have to win tomorrow, and I think they will.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, that's my prediction. What's your prediction? Finals
My
matchup.
prediction is 7 game series.
Okay.
I think it starts 1-1. And I think it goes. I think Mavs win game one, Celtics win game two, Celtics win game three, Mavs win game four, and then uh, Mavs win in seven. Final score, I'll say 112, 106.
Okay. All right, we got to come back to this then.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
I
mean,
think I think it's only like that based off like free throws, and I think it'll be a closer game seven. But I think I just don't really see them beating Luka and Kyrie in a close matchup. 4 out of 7 games.
we'll see. We'll see. Oh man, I really don't want to see Luka win a championship. I'm hating big time. But yeah, here we are. So those are our predictions. Clipper Nation, let us know what you guys think in the comments. Tell us how you feel about the potential matchup between the Celtics and the Mavs. Who you think the best players are going to be? All of that. But yeah, let's get into what we all came here for. Now
Mm-hmm.
that we've gotten the general playoff talk out of the way, let's get into our favorite team, guys. Let's talk about the Clippers. And the first thing I want to lead into is Tyronn Lue signed a 5-year extension today. We are recording this on the 29th of May. Wait, what day is it today? Wednesday.
Yeah.
And Ty Lue inked a 5-year contract extension, 70 million, which is a huge contract. That doesn't matter to me because it doesn't count towards the salary cap, and Steve Ballmer can spend his money wherever he wants to spend his money because he has a ton of it. So I personally think that it's the right move. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that there's another coach. I mean, if you look at the coaching search that a lot of these teams are going through, um, it doesn't look like the pool of talent and the pool of available coaches is very deep. You have the Lakers that are heavily leading or heavily leaning into offering JJ Redick a head coaching position, a guy that I've always thought would be a good NBA head coach, but he has no prior experience of even being an assistant. There's no coaching experience at all. Um, he's not very far removed from his playing career. And he's got the mind and the analytic, the he's really into analytics. He's really into X's and O's. I think that in theory he'd be a good coach, but I just think that you know the fact that the Lakers are willing to offer him, who has no experience, a head coaching position, kind of shows the lack of options that they that are out there in terms of a viable head coach. And I think
I
that
think that any coach would be a better option than JJ Redick personally, just because
probably, probably,
he's coaching LeBron James.
yeah.
How are you going to have a new? I mean, we saw what happened with Luke Walton. Like, how are you
I
going
mean,
to
you
have a
see it,
new young coach just like LeBron's going to walk all over him? And
but here's the thing: is
obviously LeBron has. Sorry.
Luke Walton, also real quick now that we're talking about the Waltons, rest in peace,
Yeah.
Bill
Rest in
Walton.
peace, Bill Walton.
Bill Walton unfortunately passed away at the age of 71 the other day. Former Clipper, obviously former Celtic championship, part of that championship team. Just a great human being. I think he was a
Mm-hmm.
part of that broadcast that Ralph had on his last game. Him and Ralph are very close. Um, just so much. The dude had so many stories and lived
Yeah.
50 different lives, and he's definitely going to be missed. That was a big loss for the NBA community. So
Mm-hmm.
rest in peace, Bill Walton. But as far as Luke Walton goes, I mean, even Luke Walton had assistant coaching experience from his time with Golden State,
Yeah.
and you saw how that went. I mean, I think a better comparison would be like what happened with Steve Nash in Brooklyn.
Right.
Steve Nash was a fantastic player, very cerebral player, super high IQ, but the lack of experience, I saw it coming from a mile away when they hired him. I thought they should have
Yeah.
gone with Jacques Vaughn initially, and they brought in Steve Nash, and you can't replicate experience. You can't replicate
Facts.
having the reps. And like you said, Rolla, I think most coaches would be a better option than JJ Redick. Not because I don't think that he'll eventually be a good head coach, but just because of the lack of experience. I know that they were
Yeah.
looking at James Borrego, Coach Adelman from the Nuggets, the assistant coach from the Nuggets. So there's coaches out there that, in theory, would be a good coach, good for a head coaching position. But like I said, the uh, the 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 options aren't very. There's not a variety of options, and I
Right.
think that for that reason, I think with a coach that knows our playbook and is familiar with the franchise and familiar with the players, however many of them will be here next year. I think that it's good, and I think 5 years, having a long extension to where he can feel comfortable and he doesn't feel like his job's in jeopardy or anything like that. He can really coach and get deep in his playbook. I think it was the right move.
Right.
Regardless of what you think about Ty Lue, I personally think that he's a great coach. He has his flaws, but I think that he's better than, I would say, 60%, 70% of the coaches out there. And when you have the opportunity to extend that guy, you do. Um, that's my opinion on it.
Well, yeah, I agree. I mean, it does suck that there aren't many options out there, but I think he is the best coach available right now. To me, like I said before, previous, I think I've said it in in the podcast before, but I do think he's very similar to Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers said it himself that when he was leaving, he said not much is going to change with Ty Lue. I mean, and we've seen it. We're still championshipless.
Yeah,
So
I mean that's true, but like also Doc Rivers says a lot of shit that
the thing is,
uh,
it's like, but the thing is, it's like, I mean, kind of even going back to what Doc Rivers said, he's like, Doc Rivers was good in the regular season, and then when it came to the playoffs, he kind of shit the bed. I feel like we've kind of been seeing the same thing with Ty Lue, and yeah, sure, we haven't had, I mean, a fully healthy team ever really in the playoffs. But I think I think he has a tendency to kind of fail to make adjustments sometimes, or take a little bit too long to make adjustments, or kind of just not recognize that things are happening, or thinks that he kind of assumes that he has more time than he does, and he doesn't have like that sense of urgency that I feel like I see from a lot of coaches.
that's a fair
Uh,
assessment.
but
I think that he shows a little bit more of a willingness to adjust than Doc, but from time to time, and I think every coach, you see that you hear fans of their teams talk about, oh, this dude didn't make this adjustment or that
yeah,
adjustment, and you know, uh, you see that everywhere, and I think that's just something that you kind of have to live with, and trust that these guys are professionals, and as long as they're not making glaring issues, there's not any glaring issues, kind of like what we saw with Darvin Ham or even Frank Vogel, who I think kind of got the shit end of the stick in Phoenix, but clearly something wasn't working,
hmm
and so I think that if there's not that glaring of an issue, I think you just try and run it back. I think that head coaches play less of a role than we think as fans. I think a lot of the responsibility falls, on the players and the roster construction, which falls down to the GM. I think that personally, I think if between Larry Frank and Ty Lue, I think Frank is a little bit more in the hot seat. If I'm going to be honest, just because of the the misses that he's had in terms of roster construction and stuff like that. But that's
I don't
neither
think
here nor
so.
there.
I don't think
You don't think
so.
so?
I think he's done. I don't want to say he's done. I don't want to say he's done everything right, but
No, he
at the end
definitely
of the
hasn't done
day,
everything right. I mean, Isaiah
I mean,
Hartenstein has entered the chat.
at the end of the day, dude, we had James Harden, Kawhi, and Paul George on a singular team. You know how hard it is to get those players onto one team?
That's fair.
I think that I mean, that all happened under him, and I think that you got to commend him for that. And I think that in multiple years, we had a supporting cast and a roster that was capable of winning a championship. We just had injuries. I think it had Kawhi been healthy this year, I think this is a championship level team.
I
But
agree.
Paul George can't be a number one, and I mean, once he was put into that situation this year, it was kind of GG's from the start.
Yeah. We'll talk about Paul George here in a second. Real quick, while we're talking about extensions, I did want to touch on Shams Charania was the one that came out, at least the person that I heard first about the Ty Lue extension, and he followed that up by saying that the Clippers will soon discuss an extension with Ivica Zubac, which I think is more than deserved. This season, Zoo really proved, and he's had his moments in his entire Clipper tenure. There's always kind of been he'll go through these patches where he's not playing as aggressive, or he can't his hands are he's got cinder block hands, he can't catch passes and stuff like that. But particularly in this playoff series, I mean, him and like Terrence were really like the dudes that I saw. They didn't quit, and they really were trying to get involved. I think that Ivica Zubac, for the contract that he's currently on, mixed with the value that he gives, I think that he definitely deserves an extension. I think that a 4-year extension in the realm of like 110 would not be too much to ask. I don't think.
Yeah,
What do you
I
think?
agree. I think in the last podcast, I think I mentioned this, but I think it's got to be Terrence Mann and Zoo. I think those are the only two players that are worth our time and our money. Well, I'm saying are like I'm Steve
Yeah,
Ballmer.
yeah, yeah. You're Steve Ballmer. My
but,
billions
but
and billions of dollars.
no, I think those are the only two players that wanted it. I mean, we saw
Yeah,
it this playoff run. Paul George looked like he did not want to be on the court for the last two games. James Harden looked like fucking garbage. That dude is. Think about James Harden. It sometimes you got to think to yourself. These players have. These players have. What's the word I'm looking for?
money.
Um, no, they. I mean, they do have money, but these players have reputations for a reason. Like
Yeah,
James Harden's reputation is collapsing in the playoffs, and they're like, well, he does it every year. What makes you think that he's not going to do it this year? And he did it. Like, how are you that
I
caliber of
don't
a
put a ton of it
player?
on I don't put a ton of it on James. I think that he did what he was
Yeah,
supposed to
but
do.
I mean, like, he had multiple games where he scored single digits. How are you
He
that
did.
caliber of player and you're scoring single digits? And
Yeah,
this is a dude that was known for being a specialist at getting to the line. If you're
yeah.
having a bad shooting game, get to the
Get to the
line.
line.
How is he? How it's like something where I just don't think I could understand. I think like I have to be or you, the person for you to understand how that's possible. You'd have to play on that level of basketball.
Yeah,
Because to me, I don't really understand how that's possible. Like
can't fathom it.
the second you like you feel yourself playing poorly, and Steph Curry does this all the time when he's like when he has an off night shooting, like drive in, do. I mean, obviously everyone flops in the NBA these days, but give a little acting job. Do what you do, get some fouls, and get yourself rolling. I mean, the free throws are
Yeah,
supposed to get you rolling a little bit.
it's just a matter of
It's just a little
forcing your
frustrating.
will in one way or
Exactly.
another. Don't just roll over. I know what you mean. And speaking of PG, you touched on PG. Earlier, not being able to be that number one option. It came out earlier, I think, a week or two ago, that the Clippers, believe, denied the request to extend, give PG the max extension, which I think is perfectly understandable. Kawhi didn't even get a max extension, so I don't think that PG should even cross his mind.
Yeah.
I get it. I get that he's in the twilight stage of his career. He's getting to the end. He wants one more big contract because I think that's why he's not going to opt in for the final year of his contract, because he wants a long-term contract to be able to kind of finish off his career. And like I get it. You want to get as much money as you can towards the end of your career. Go get your max, but it's not going to be here. And some other news that came out was that the Sixers are allegedly interested in giving uh, some player a max extension, and one of those players would be Paul George. So I'm interested to see if that would mean that if PG does leave, or if PG is moved or whatever, if that means that he's walking without a sign and trade, just we're losing him for nothing, which in my opinion would be worse than if we kept him. We are currently over the second
I
apron.
don't think
Paul
so.
George, we're currently over the second apron, and Paul George leaving would still we would still be over the second apron. So we wouldn't be able to go out and sign a max player, because we do have his bird rights, and so I think that if the idea is to part with PG, which I'm kind of the belief that that might be the right move, we need to try and find a way to do a sign and trade or convince PG that a sign and trade is in his best interest. Like similar to what happened with Chris Paul when he went to the Rockets. Sign and
Mm-hmm.
trade. We got Pat Bev, Lou Williams, Montrezl Harrell, Sam Decker picks. Um, I think that something like that needs to be done. Speaking of the Rockets, heard that the Rockets are willing to part with their third pick in the draft for a superstar or star level player. So that's something to monitor on the Paul George
I don't think
front.
the draft is that talented this year, are they?
No, I mean, I think it's one of the worst drafts that I've seen in years. But at the end of the day, the Rockets do have assets. They have, they have guys that they could trade in theory. I really like Tari Eason, Cam Whitmore, Jabari Smith. I don't
Mm.
know. I don't know for sure if they would part with Jabari Smith, but and the third pick and other picks too. So something to keep an eye on for sure. I've I will always have love for PG. He's had
Not me.
moments. He's had moments with this Clippers team that I'll never forget. And that doesn't go unnoticed. But at the end of the day, you have to kind of recognize when something isn't working. And I think that that would be the easiest way if you want to change something up, which I think we need to. That would be the easiest way to remedy that to a point. So we'll see. It's a long off season. We'll be talking about it,
Mm-hmm.
in the next coming weeks or months. But really, the last thing that I wanted to touch on is a very small piece of news and a very predictable piece of news. But PJ Tucker did opt into his $11 million player option. That would make him, I believe I did the research, that would make him the fifth highest paid player on the Los Angeles Clippers, which is unbelievable. And obviously, I understand why he would opt into the contract. He's not going to get
Right.
a contract like that elsewhere. But the Clippers, if they can in any way, need to try and find a way to attach PJ Tucker in a trade or offload him in some way for
Yeah.
second round picks or cash or a bag of Doritos or some foreign player that doesn't get any playing time. Clippers cannot afford to pay this $11 million at least for the whole
Yeah.
season. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
it comes halfway through the season, but yeah. So that's another little piece of news that is pretty insignificant, but definitely eats away into our salary cap. So we need to try and find a way to get that done. But yeah, guys, I think that pretty much does it. Obviously, I believe that there's going to be a lot more Clipper news coming on the horizon, but obviously that kind of stuff doesn't happen until the finals are over. So until then, we'll be watching, we will be waiting, and we will be here for your Clipper news, your Clipper rumors, hot takes, all of the above. Roll, you want to send us out here on this fine Wednesday?
Yes, sir. Guys, please sure to make
Please, sure.
sure please make sure to check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Deezer, Amazon Music, and YouTube. And
Mm-hmm.
don't forget Twitter and Instagram at Clip Service Pod.
Never forget.
We love you guys.
Thank you
Let's
guys
see
so much.
whose prediction was right.
Yeah, we'll come
And
back
make
to that.
sure and we'll make sure to check in with you guys.
Appreciate it,
All
guys.
right.
Go Clips.
Go Clips.